just had an amazing conversation with Lars here from Scale Up XQ. We talked about a lot about customization of your process, customization of your communication, customization of what you need to do in order to make sure that your sales organization is doing well. It's a lot of things happening right now. Lars knows a lot of stuff. My brain is like exploding of information. I hope you don't explode of knowledge, but I hope you'll enjoy it. Thank you very much. I do the Mr. Beast examples. So Mr. Beast always gets these people saying like, "Hey, how can I be the #1 YouTuber in the world?" And he says, "Oh, well, it's very easy. You just make 100 videos, and for each video, you try to do one thing a little bit better. And then when you've done that, come back to me." And two things happens. First, most people will never do 100 videos. They just quit, so like filtered. And when they've done 100 videos and tried to do one little thing a little bit better, they don't need his advice anymore. Like they are equally good. So, he can outsource that help very nicely. So I'm trying to do the same thing here. Like we're nerding out of business and then we're doing a little bit better every time.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
And this is going to be in English?
Yes, it's going to be in English. Because I'm so language confused, and also we also have a bigger total addressable market when we do it in English.
That's true.
Unless we're gonna flip it into like 11 labs and do like in Espanol or something like that.
Well, you can do that today with AI. So
exactly.
You just relax and let someone else do the work for you.
Yeah, but it's fun. Like we literally met 5 minutes ago, Lars. You're the founder and CEO of Scale Up XQ. What does XQ stand for? Extra quality?
Extra quality, yeah. It was a little bit art by accident, I would say. So we were debating in our founding team, like what matters the most. Is it like IQ or EQ or RQ relationships? And then we ended up or HQ, like the community you are part of. So we just decided, like, okay, but it's the X then, because then that in a way covers it all. But then we also realized a few months later that XQ, it also stands for execution quotient. So in a way, it made sense. Like if you want to scale up, it's your ability to execute much more than anything else. And so we just stuck with that, and yeah, and I think it describes it pretty well. So right now it's a story for I would say, if someone asked me directly, I would say like it's your ability to execute, and it's a combination of a lot of things.
Okay, no, that's nice. It's so like you can fit that matter of fact story.
Exactly. But that was retrofitted, if you could put it like that, right?
A lot of things are. And what is it that you guys are doing exactly?
We are supporting other companies, and then B2Bs mostly, in establishing a proper way of running their sales organizations. So I would say like everyone wants more sales, but there's a lot of different ways of getting more sales. You can outsource it, you can hire, you can build, you can do combo. And we are more of a full stack agency. We have the dream organization that most anyone would like to have, with CROs, VPs, sales managers, all the people knocking all the doors, sending all the mails, going into all the customer meetings and so forth. And the enablement and CRM team. So basically, we can launch ourselves into any company with just a fractional setup. So you can package all of these roles into one FTE, and you can get access to all the know-how that you typically maybe get only through a sequential hiring strategy from day one, and then we can roll into the market with you.
Nice. So if I want to open up in Germany, for example, I don't have a German team, I can then get 20% of a VP of sales, I can get 20% of a BDR, and then I get 40% of a salesperson.
Yeah, in a way you can. But I would rather say that it's more like someone comes to us, say like, we would like to go to Germany. How would you like to solve going to Germany? And then we have some sessions with the customer saying we would prioritize it in A, B, C, this order. And if you would like to work with us, The first stage is going to be 10% VP, 99% BDR, and then maybe second stage when we learn more, it's going to be some AEs closing businesses on top of it, and maybe some marketing people. So we can always change the team. It's very, very agile and very dynamic.
Okay, so why did you start? This is, I mean, I almost started in a company like this. I said yes. I was part of the partner team, and then I got a second child and realized that I would not be able to make it fly with the time I had. But so I really like this model. I think it's a really cool model. But what do you think? Why did you start this? What triggered you and your co-founders to go down this path?
Yeah, so my background is not from consulting. My background is from being part of fast-growing sales teams. And my first job was actually connected to a Swedish company, Media Planet, back in the days, which I was one of the earliest hires and got to be a part of a journey where we grew from just a few people to several hundred people with offices in, I believe, 18 countries in 3.5 years. And then it was something that sparked an interest in terms of the system value of it. How can you repeat it? How can you develop something in one country and make sure that you can expand it to another country? So this kind of stuck with me, and then I've been doing this again and again and again, with different companies. And in 2014, I joined a company in Norway, S1E3. It's a pretty known company in Norway right now. It's very successful, very heavy industrial company, big data company. And we were a small team, and my responsibility was to take that to market. And at the same time, you had this entrepreneurship boom in Norway. So since we were on the radar as a company that we were monitored by the ecosystem, and everyone wanted to have some insights in what we were doing. I got in touch with a lot of people, and I kind of realized that what we were solving, and we were really good at what we're doing, I would say, how to hire, how to build teams, how to run teams, how to prioritize rolling out in markets and so forth. And but what we were doing and the way we were thinking about it, wasn't that much of that kind of know-how available in the Norwegian market. So at some point, I got so many requests for coffee. Every day, someone pinged us and how did you do this? How did you do that? That I realized that shit. We just need to muster up some people and see if we can find a smarter way of supporting these companies in getting this know-how quicker. Because in Norway, we have availability of resources, but it used to be totally empty, right?
But it's still I used to run some Nordic span teams, and it was always hard to find really good sales talent. I think I was working a lot in enterprise sales, but which made it harder, because I think in SMB you could potentially train quicker, but if you're in a big multi-international matrix organization, enterprise sales, and you kind of have to come a little bit with a luggage and baggage of experience, or else you're going to drown in that. But what made you what made you then successful? Because now you're scaling up tremendously, right? So what do you think is your X factor in this?
I believe it's connected to some of the same things that it was initially. It's hard to get hold of the right kind of salespeople, but it's even harder to get hold of someone that's been through a scaling journey a couple of times, and then seen what kind of prioritizations you have to do, in which order to get the most effect out of things. And I would probably say that is the key to how we're rolling out. We can be really fast out in the markets and actually then running operational sales in the markets, but we do spend some time on proper prep work. So we look at the right things, basically, and by right things I mean how to whom are we selling, and how do we communicate towards the ones that we are selling towards. we're spending quite some time on that to make sure that the salespeople are able to anchor the value proposition at the right level. And of course, we would like to be a part of developing amazing sales opportunities that someone are taking through a process and closing and winning deals, right? Then you have to also be on top of, the disqualification, qualification criteria, sales processes, system landscape. Yeah, all of this. So, but this is something that, companies that are, again, hiring sequentially don't necessarily have the experience. And this goes for large companies too. Like we are working with substantial companies with hundreds of millions in revenue. So it's not only startups. A lot of companies are struggling with the similar things that you can get so far without a great system value. But when you would like to grow up and scale further, you need to have a system in the bottom that actually people can lean upon. So you can actually then get people to increase their efficiency, increase the effect, and so forth. And we invest a bit in that system value right at the beginning when we launch with customers. And then we roll out to the market. But secondly, in connection to that is that we work with the customer as we were hired by the customer. So we work in their system landscape that we build together with them. So they keep everything. And that is something that, of course, opens up for a lot of interesting opportunities. It's not a black box where someone delivers you some leads or some meetings, which also is important, like as a part of the ecosystem. But we build all the evidence inside so we can use it for further product development, for further marketing development, and a lot of decision making that is based on data, right?
Do you have an example for an engagement that has gone well on that, or?
Well, I have several examples, but one of the customers that we have been working the longest with, I would say, but it's a very successful relationship. It's also a Swedish company. I believe they are on the fast-growing list and been for some years. We've been working with a company, Bannerflow, in Sweden for some time, and we have been their go-to-market team opening up Germany. And I'm not in liberty to reveal all data, of course, because it's a customer relationship. But when it comes to the customer acquisition cost payback time that we are seeing in Germany, because we know how to roll out things, it is far shorter than you would expect from an enterprise SaaS company. Let's put it like that. So we are there. We have been there for 1.5 years, and we are still there. I mean, quite successful, I would say. But there are several more cases like that. We run typically somewhere between 15 to 20 companies in parallel. And of course, the read across and the learnings in between these companies, it helps all the companies to move faster, right?
Yeah. Do you have like skin in the game in that kind of, because I feel, sometimes I can feel that some of these motions can become a little bit consultancy, like it's and if you don't have that skin in the game, it doesn't hurt so much, like you can do the motions and you can have some KPIs that are maybe fulfilled to a certain extent, but if you have that skin in the game, everybody's running a little bit faster towards the goal. Yeah, at least that's my opinion.
Yeah, it's a bit this is, in our case, is case by case actually. So we look upon the case and customize our, in a way, approach to it based on the challenges that have to be solved, the maturity on the case, and so forth. So of course, if a company is mature and maybe it's the first time you're going into the market, you don't have the data proof points to actually build any kind of business case. So I would say, like, in that case, the risk is on the company. Like, you need people, and you can't really build a good model, and everyone is going to lose if you don't have predictability when it comes to the cost side, much more than anything else. But the further down the line a company is, and the more data we have, the more dynamic models we can build. So with quite a few of our customers, we have success fees, kickback models. Like, we try to organize the best we can as you would organize your own sales organization. But I do also believe that, like, since we are operators by heart, like, we are like a bottom-up agency, and even when we support other companies with just strategy work, because we can do that. We are in there supporting them on more on the advisory level, and maybe some also we are just there building some playbooks and helping them because they already have teams. We think from an operator lens because we know how hard it is, and you don't want to set other companies in a tricky situation. And obviously something is working. Like we haven't been doing much marketing or anything. Like, and customer, they come by recommendation of other customers, and I guess that's the best way to go, isn't it?
100%.
Yes.
What is it that you know now that is like obvious, like that you wish that you have known, when you started out as an entrepreneur?
Oh my God,
that's a tough question.
I started out as an entrepreneur a long time ago. So
like 14 years old selling lemonade.
Oh my God. Well, I do know a lot about what kind of activity levels you have to keep to be successful in sales, and that is much more than the average salesperson realized, even myself when I was younger. But again, going
So let's dig into that. Okay, activity levels, what is needed to be successful? Does it matter which market you're in?
Yes, it of course it matters what kind of markets you're in, for sure. And it matters also if you have, of course, few accounts or many accounts. But I would also say, like, how active you are with the accounts that you're working, and how proactive you are in terms of how you are leading these accounts in a sales process. It definitely matters a lot. And activity can be quantitative things. Like if you have a big market and you're unknown, then of course your first task is to talk to as many as possible as soon as possible to figure out who is in a position to buy. And that doesn't mean like you put up a plan and say, like, this month I'm going to talk to 20 and next month I'm going to talk to 50. It's like, no, you're going to talk to as many as possible as soon as possible to figure out if they are in a position to buy something. But of course, if you have in a very account-based enterprise market, you can't use that same approach, because then you're going to burn all the powder within a few weeks. But then you have to think about it differently, right? I have this account. There may be several stakeholders in this account. How can I then be proactive and make sure that I bring these people together so they can talk about my value proposition? That's also activity.
Yeah.
So,
where do you see that then maybe sales organizations are having a misconception on that? Like, where does it, where do you see, like, if we can fix and tweak that often, that will help a lot, even if no matter if it's a account enterprise or if it's like high velocity sales?
If it's high velocity, it's evident, right? It's like you can't just send a mail or call a customer and a couple of times and then hang up and then think that, no, we didn't reach them. It's like it's a never-ending game, right? And that's also been changing a lot over the years, like how much effort is put in just to get in connection with people. So just like bringing attention to that most people they quit too fast when they try to get in contact with people. That is a game changer for a lot of the organizations we are working with.
What's too fast?
Too fast? That depends on market and on the size. Like, is it high velocity, transactional? I would say that too fast. I would rather say what is too much. Can you say that instead? Like, you have to be mindful about these things, right? So, depending on the country, like if you're going to Norway and the Nordics is easy because you can call anyone, right? And you have to try a bit. But again, like if you haven't reached people in, 5 to 10 tries, and then maybe send a couple of mails and try to reach them on LinkedIn, maybe that's a good signal for you to just lay off a bit and then see if you can reach out later, right? But if you're in the UK, where it's highly competitive and, the front desk is just going to tell you to sod off every time you try to reach them, like then you have to try maybe 20, 30, 40 times just to get through, right? Then you try different angles and different people, and you call to the next desk, and like it's much more hustling, I would say. So then too much is another thing, right?
I like that. It's I had one sales guy. Well, he wasn't a original sales guy, but he was forced to be a sales guy because the situation their company was in.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he said, I'm just not comfortable calling this many times. And I said, unfortunately, it doesn't really matter what you're comfortable with, because if you don't call more than he had 8 touch points.
Okay.
And statistically, that's too little. So if you stop after 8, because that's where you're comfortable, then you will never reach anyone. So you need to
Exactly.
get uncomfortable with and 40. I mean, it also are you, when you're also doing multi-touch, bring value in the multi-touch, or are you just being like nagging?
No, yeah, that's so important. Yeah.
No, I'm now in the procurement side on a process. Every salesperson should be in a procurement side for once in their life.
That
to be
helps.
honest, that's so helpful. I had this sales guy who continuously trying to multi-thread. And he never came with any value when he was multi-threading. He just became super annoying. So what is one of those things that you see that maybe salespeople do because they think it's the right thing, but it actually becomes maybe annoying or a net negative for the process?
Yeah. So this is a really good point, by the way, and especially today, like just the past year, like with the whole AI introduction to the space, it's become increasingly more difficult to stand out in the crowd, and since mails have they haven't been working that well, and also then of course then more templated mails is like response rates and even getting into the inboxes is super plummeting. So everyone is calling and everyone is LinkedIning and then they take the same approach as they did on these templated mails, and that doesn't work. So you can't go with the standardized message and then pinging back and say, hey, did you read my message? And then ping back again and just wanted to remind you that I sent you a message. Like, who the cares, right? So we see this like hyper personalization in terms of, but not. And then in relation to what you're doing in your occupation, we spend a lot on time of that, researching much thoroughly the accounts and the persons in the accounts, so we can actually get back to them with something that is highly relevant for them. And we also use, it varies which countries it's in actually, but we do use everything from video to voice, just to make sure that people understand that it's a real person on the other end, because that's something that we've seen a lot lately, that there, like I don't have any numbers on it, but my impression is that a lot more people are going to trade the events now than it was only 1 year ago, because they're getting so uncertain on like who's on the other end. We would like to actually meet people and see people. So adding that layered to a LinkedIn message, like whether it's video, whether it's voice, or what it is, I do believe that helps. And that we have data on. We have a lot on data on conversion. If you prove yourself as a real person and that you have tailored the message exceptionally well with the value that you provide in that message, it's conversions are. On the connecting side, at least 3 to 4 times higher, and on the conversion side, when it comes to then relevance and how they convert them into a business opportunity, is also at least a double.
But so this makes logical sense, and like do the work, and like actually if there's an enterprise, read the financial report, see if there's a nugget there that you can tie to your your business value. Where does it, like somewhere it needs to be a certain amount of value in dollar amounts that you're selling for this activity to be justified, right?
Yes.
So, where do you see like a annual contract value? Can you say like, oh, if it's less than $10,000, you need to spend less, or if you know what I'm coming at?
Yeah, and that's very interesting. There are some ranges on this, and I guess that it goes from all the way from product led into more like product / marketing led into more marketing / a little bit sales led, and then flips over to sales led but everything is of course connected, so you always place on all strings, but it's about what you're leading with. And And I do also want to put pressure on that. It's not necessarily only SaaS, right? Because you don't. It's not about ARR. It's about making sure that you can count home the effort versus the revenue that you're getting. But in the SaaS world, I would say, like, if it's below like 15,000, 20,000 euros in ARR, you have to start thinking about at least the effort you're pouring in as a pure investment. It's going to be hard to build strong business cases on, especially then CAC payback time that we work a lot with. But you can use it, but you just have to be very mindful about that it's not going to make sense in the beginning. It's going to stack up at the end, but it's a high risk, right?
And I guess you can maybe have some type of formalized template still in this way that, like what we're looking for in our accounts are topics like X, Y, and Z. If you can find that, then it fits this ideal customer profile. So then you can justify the time. But if you can't find that, you need to move on. Like, or is
That's
that
true. Like, you have to be more precise. But also today, like when you have this growing ecosystem of tools that are available, the account research and account enrichment is actually where it's been the most gain. I would say, like, this is like, you and me, we're old enough, so we remember when the whole marketing automation game came, right? And everybody started to talk about, like, now we don't have to do sales anymore. Like, it's automated everything. Like, and it was like, it was crazy how everything was template, everything automated, and you started using HubSpot and other tools just to ship out email campaigns, and it didn't really work that well.
I mean,
right?
you have a 2% open rate in a good
Exactly.
market, and and that was before you could. That was when you actually could, count on the open rates as well, right?
Exactly. And now we can't. Now we can't even do that, right? So, but I kind of sense like it's a bit similar today. Like, a lot of people and a lot of salespeople are utilizing like the AI based tools and platforms to mass mail and mass send, instead of using them to actually offload the work that is extremely time consuming, which is a lot of it is research. So we use the tools for research purposes, first and foremost, and then of course some support on tailoring messaging based on that research. But that is something you can start automating. So suddenly you can personalize hundreds of emails towards hundreds of decision makers, at least at a framework level, within minutes. And then you sit there and only tweak on them. And then that is, a whole other ball game than writing everything and doing all the research from scratch.
So which tools are you using, and how are you using it in a good way? Which are your favorite tools right now?
I would say that the fastest grow. This is also like same as in marketing automation days, right? It explodes. So it's 1 million billion tools out there, and the tools itself won't help you much if you haven't a structure behind it that you actually own yourself. Basically, what you said also, like, if you have a framework where you understand your ICP, and if you have a framework where you understand your value proposition towards that ICP, then you can start playing around with these tools, and then they will help you to guide you. But I would say that probably and it's a tool that I do believe that a lot of people have been catching up on, and that is Clay. Clay is a super tool for a lot of things, and it's not been around that long, but it's been developing extremely fast. So we're using Clay for a lot of things, like research, prospecting, matching data, and then of course we connect that to some kind of chat platform. Like we're using Claude a lot, and then we're using Claude getting informed by Clay, and then suddenly you can start tailoring a lot of things. And then of course we lean heavily on CRM, so we bring it into the lead management CRM system, and then the magic happens, right?
Clay, I feel, is like Vegemite, or I don't know what's the Norwegian brunost, brown cheese for our American listeners. It's interesting for non-Norwegians. Either you love it or you hate it. It's so polarized, this Clay, and I haven't put myself into the details because I find it a little bit like it seems like it's a bit of a threshold to get started with clay and do it well. Like you kind of need to invest both like time and effort and money for it to really take off. Is that perception right, or am I just reading too much LinkedIn comments?
Well, I believe that if you have your like this little bit more of the systematic approach to your own business and value proposition before initiating any kind of actually and using any kind of tool, but also clay, it's not that difficult.
Okay.
But then again, it all depends on what you're trying to use it for. So if you think about the order of things, right? You would like to have access to data, and you would like to, in a way, scrape or prospect that data. You would like to enrich that data with something that is more contextual, and you would maybe like to attach that to get some signals going or something like that. That is like when we're talking top of funnel here, and then you would like to use this to start developing content, mails, LinkedIn, whatever, right? But connected to those parts, like if you know that you're going to solve, like right now we're only going to check web pages of 2,000 companies that we already brought out from a database. It's exceptionally well, and it's quite cheap. It used to be expensive, but the prices are plummeting on these credits. They like everyone is competing on everything, so it's getting cheaper and cheaper. So I don't know how. Like we did some kind of experiment the other day where we had like, I do believe it was like a couple of thousand companies that we were then visiting all the web pages. We're looking for all relevant information. Enriched all the accounts with all that relevant information, and the relevant information is of course something that we decided in front what we were looking for. I do believe that effort cost us around 50 Norwegian kroner.
Yeah, that's nothing.
Exactly.
So because I almost feel overwhelmed, like I'm a first-time founder. Yes. And there's so much technology, there's so much new things happening all the time. Like I'm, I brought up in a cold calling environment, so yeah. I'm a cold caller. That's my hammer. Exactly. And the entire world is nails of just cold calling. Yep. So I've been trying to be a little bit systematic, if we're talking the same word when we say systematic. Yeah. About it. So I have my Salesforce CRM as foundation. That's my single source of truth. Mm-hmm. I'm an ex-Salesforce person, so have to stay true to the blue. Then I use Apollo on top of that. Mm-hmm. So any leads that or prospecting is done in Apollo, and mm-hmm. when that is converting into an opportunity, then Salesforce is the the record keeper. Mm-hmm. And then I use a parallel dialer Orem on top of that, mm-hmm. Which I am. Like it's efficiency gains is insane, right? I used Apollo just like dialing, just power dialing, and if nobody picked up, which sometimes is the case, maybe I could get to 40 dials in an hour, mm-hmm. and with Orem I can get 100 pretty easily.
That helps.
That helps a lot. Yes. I mean, but even with that, because I started a year ago, so trying to find the ICP has been tough, right? Like just now I'm narrowing it down. So I see that companies between 10 and 50 salespeople is a good fit, mm-hmm. in the SaaS business. Mm-hmm. And then also if you use Medic or MedPick, then you're like, if you have those three components, it's very, very likely, because then you need to have more processes in place. Exactly. You don't necessarily have a VP of sales that is so experienced. You now grow so fast that you can't have it all in your head. Exactly. So now my tool is like helping out. But so I would love to dig into the clay and do this relevance, but I don't even know where to start. When you're talking about these things, like I'm like,
maybe you don't have to.
No.
Right now, right? And that, but you do, but all this like Apollo and there's similar players out there, right? And it depends again what you're going to use it for. So, but we are leaning, like, since we are working with the or let's put it like this, like in the Nordics and also in Europe, especially then Northern Europe, that like it's not that much of Salesforce actually. Like it's not like in the US where Salesforce is everywhere, but there's a lot of other CRM systems, and also HubSpot have been really like on the move for years and have established them very well here. So we see a lot of HubSpot. So we have been specializing on the whole lead management and the whole like sequencing part coming from HubSpot. So we are leaning upon that. So of course, that is solving a lot of the more process the parts connected to processes and how you run your outreaches. And then when it comes to data and if it's contact data, company data, it depends on markets and industry. So we can't only lean on one. We have to lean on several ones and whatever goes basically to get hold of information. But I would say that probably, like if you run with Apollo and with HubSpot or something Salesforce or something else, and with a dialer, that is probably more than enough to get going with the cold calling game. And cold calling is working great in a lot of markets and a bit trickier in other markets. But it's not enough if you would like to still continue using mails as a tool, and if you're adding also other channels and trying to develop the relevant part of it, you just have to be like relevance 2 years ago. It was important, but not that important because people replied anyways. Relevance today, it's everything in written.
And that's so when you say relevance, are you then talking about like the data that you can find from their home pages, or are you, because you've also mentioned signals?
Combination, I would say. Like, so relevance can be like, so basically there's so many different ways of doing it, but when we are trying to be tactical, and we work a lot with the enterprise sales, like tricky accounts, multi-stakeholders, you don't really know who is actually making the decisions, and for that product in particular, so you need to talk to several ones typically. But so what we see is then that relevance is like they work somewhere and they're located somewhere. They have a certain title and it comes with some responsibilities. They have a LinkedIn profile and maybe other profiles where you can like connect information from. And maybe they're a part of some communities, some groups on LinkedIn. Maybe they've commented. Like all this data, if you get hold of that, you get a pretty good picture of that, like what that person is thinking on behalf of the position they are representing for that company. If you know that, you can tailor your pitch pretty precisely towards that person. So that's the work, like collecting that information and actually like really getting the juice out of it. That's the work that we are getting a lot of help from Clay, for instance.
So if we then like make an example here, like in the past, it was enough to say, "Oh, you're a CIO. You care about the systems, and how that all operates together. You're a CFO. You care about the metrics and the financial business." Now it's not enough to just say that. You need to then also gather the fluffiness around that to tailor it more specifically to that person. Because if you're only saying, "Hey, Mr. CEO or Mr. CFO, you are now looking at the financials," they're like, well, it's more complicated than that. There are so many decisions that I have to make. I'm not even aware that you are trying to sell anything into my organization. So, like you need to go through the ranks before it even comes to my desk. Or
that's one point, and also then again bring to the mind that in today's landscape, it's a it's a bloodbath out there. There's like people are. It's kind of interesting too, because like we have this macroeconomic situation, which then makes it harder for a lot of companies to sell. So everyone have to try harder. And when everyone tries harder, they reach out harder. So the ones that are on the procurement side, they're getting spammed like with so many different kind of messages, like on phone and mail. And I've seen it myself over the past year. Like I used to maybe get 1 or 2 like cold calls, like calling into me, and maybe 1 or 2 mails a day. Now I get 10 to 15 every day, maybe more every day. And I ask all my friends too, like, well, do you get this? And everyone in business, in the business position is like, yeah, it's been changing. So how do you stand out from that noise? That is the major issue. And standing out from that noise is going to be, when you get through the phone, you have to be extremely relevant. And then you have to show that you've done some research to actually understand the situation on the person on the other end. And if you do it in written communication or by video, you really have to stand out, and you have to be like showing that you are on top of your game.
Because that's how I feel a bit. Like cold calling is such an uncomfortable thing to do for everyone, even if you've done it for years.
Yes,
it's
that's
still
true.
it still sucks. That at least that you are then competing in a smaller pool of sharks. Whereas it's more comfortable sitting behind an email. Even if you're sequencing that email, you might not even like know that it's going out.
True.
So it's like it's easier to compete in that. I feel personally, but then it does make sense. With this video and showing that you're actually a real person. I have a acquaintance. He's doing this on LinkedIn. In his ICP, he tries to connect with all the CROs, but when he connects, he doesn't pitch slap. He doesn't send instantly or anything, which you obviously shouldn't. But he just sends them a video when he's going out with his dog, and saying like, "Hey, it's me here. I just wanted to make a human connection in this AI world. I hope you have a great day." And then he doesn't do anything more, and his like response rate on that is very high.
Exactly.
Like, because they're like, "Oh, this is actually a human being."
Yeah, but that then because I do believe that this is very interesting, right? Because it's about that you have two parts to it, right? And one part is the relevance part. The second part is actually the human part. And I do believe that sales, at least for quite some time, like is still going to be a relationship thing. It's a human to human thing when it comes to certain level of sales, of course. Like not all sales, but and then what I mean by that is when it comes to certain ticket sizes, you would rather know the person on the other end, right?
Yeah.
But then actually what you're talking about, your friend, we have experienced the same. Like we are trying out like all of these kind of things to see like what sticks and what doesn't work, and lowering the threshold for how to get in contact, not being so serious about things just to get in contact. 100% we see the same results. Like the one that is the best in our company, I would say, on at least LinkedIn / mail conversions is using some of the same like approach that you're saying right now, and the conversions are ridiculously high. And then I'm talking about the connection conversion first and foremost. But if you would like to bring them to the next level and actually convert it into a real sales opportunity, then you have to show relevance. So you have to have the combination of these.
But maybe that's the key right now then, is that since everybody's trying to fight in this like cesspool of outreach, like if you can just like take one level up and say, I will bring my knife out in this fight, but I will wait until I said hi first. Like it's
exactly.
And then at least you're not competing with everyone else down on the first level.
But it is, and especially now, I would say like when you have platforms that are allowing you to fully automate mostly all kind of sequences, even now that the whole video thingy also is now automated, like a lot of it. It's so much spammy stuff out there, and it like the content is sometimes pretty decent, but you kind of see through it. And if you can see through it, people on the other end that's going to buy something is going to see through it.
But because what we were saying now, like that hello message, I saw another LinkedIn follower, not that I know, but she was saying like, hey, I just went into this tool, I can't remember the tool, and then I just marked the transcript with Blueberry, and then I went to 11 Labs, and then I said, every time you hear Blueberry, say company name, and then send it through LinkedIn message. So now, like, even that kind of like Well, like now that personal is also like getting tweaked into, so it's gonna be just harder and harder to figure out how to break that through that like fourth wall.
It's going to be but it used to be like back in the old cold calling days where you come from and I come from too. Like I've done my millions of cold calls. I don't have count of it, but and it was highly manual, right? And maybe if you were lucky, your boss invested in a dialer, but didn't work really well. So everything was manual.
Yeah.
And at least we were not even allowed to have like you sat at your desk basically, right? Yeah. and then you developed probably like at least some level of your own CRM because the CRM systems didn't support the way you were working, and and then suddenly we get into this era where the marketing automation, sales automation play started. I believe like, and of course then it became spammy, and now you add the AI game on top of that, and the level of spamminess and it's so crowded. Like, so it's going to be very interesting to see what is the reaction to that. I do believe that we see some of it. Like a couple of years back, if we sent like a video like walking your dog, like people would probably frown upon it a bit because it's not professional.
Yeah.
Now they're like relieved, like, oh my God, it's a real person actually doing some effort here. Great.
Yeah.
That's one of the reactions. And also trade shows. I do believe that in some industries we see trade shows, like it's almost like when you call someone or you get in touch with a sales opportunity and you try to book them into a meeting, they ask you immediately like, yeah, but are you going to that trade show? And yes, then we meet there. Like,
Yeah.
It's like you don't even get a video meeting with them, right?
No, that's interesting. It's but then also I have some American colleagues that they crawl the trade show like attendance list, and they run it through their buying persona, and then they send email outreach, towards that and say, how was the reach? Sorry that I missed you. And I even seen it now here, like in Denmark, there's tech barbecue is quite big, and like now the last year since I've been attending last 2 or 3 years, and then every time there's like, oh, I missed you. I'm like, you weren't there, mate. Like, I'm pretty sure you weren't there.
But that's the nature of this technology advancements, and I do believe that we are going to see it is similar again to the marketing automation, because like when we started out in like 2011-12, when I started looking into the technology development of this space, right? It was like 100, or maybe a bit more, like technology platforms that supported sales. It was like some CRM systems and then some email, newsletter, MailChimpy thingies, right? 2014, I believe it was like a couple of thousand documented, and when we hit like 2018, 19, 20, it's like 20,000. And then the whole AI wave came now, and then I saw actually an infographic on this the other day. I do believe that they have now identified like just the past year, it's launched like 3,500, 4,000 new like software platforms, like small, big ones, supporting sales.
Yeah.
No wonder you're getting confused, right? Like, how do you start sorting out of that?
And what so what's actually important then? Like, okay, so like because this tech stack can be a death of 1,000 cuts, right? Like you could spend so much time on it and tweaking, and so like what's the 80-20 then? Like if you should just focus on something to like let's say a sequence or do you even think about sequencing? Do you okay, so let's take a sequence, like because that's changing all the time. So by the time you said what you think is working, that's already over.
You have to A/B test all the time.
A/B test all the time. And what type of do you A/B test, like, because that's also like it doesn't matter if you A/B test the subject line, because you should just cold call them anyway. And like there's so many gurus out there saying things, and I'm not sure they actually have the data to provide.
It's so much smoke and mirrors, right? So we don't listen too much on that. It's just a common sense, and common sense gets you a long way. Ask yourself, would you reply to this email? Probably not. Well, then maybe you shouldn't send it. Or would you reply to someone that actually calls you and start pitching you like it's the first thing they do when they take the phone? Probably not. Would you reply to a LinkedIn message that is just nudging you 14 times about not having answered the previous message? Probably not. So common sense takes you a long way, and we are not A/B testing the content as much as we are A/B testing the channel. So in a way, like if you go to and also of course we're A/B testing a lot country by country because it's very big differences. Like again, Nordics are very call friendly still. It's harder and harder the further you get into Europe, for instance. I don't say it doesn't work because it do work, but it's much harder. And but then of course then you have to lean much more on mails and LinkedIn, for instance, or other kind of media. And what we are A/B testing there is more the frequency, and then maybe we adding some. We're not necessarily changing the A/B testing like the changes of the text on the subject line, but maybe like what happens if you add video? What happens if you add voice? What happens if you like someone did the other day an AI generated song
Okay.
that they generated for that person? What happens then? Like you don't know. Like if you like, and it actually went very well. That's a cool thing. But our first job as salespeople, it is like the first conversion point is to get in touch. Right? So you can say like whatever it takes to get in touch, as long as you, and if you would like to increase your chance to get in touch, you can't be rude, you can't be stupid, you can't like it's like logic and common sense. And but the second one is of course then after you get in touch, making sure that you can actually go into a conversation, a dialogue with them, because that's basically what you're trying to get, right? You're not trying to pitch the shit out of things. You're trying to get into a dialogue with someone, and then convert into a sales opportunity if there's a match with everything that you're looking for. And that's where a lot of people go wrong. I do believe that we can play around with 1 million different things to get in contact, but if you not drive for a dialogue when you actually get in contact, but you start pitching or you start like there's so much strange things going on, like you're gonna lose the opportunity long before you actually had the chance to actually get into a discovery.
But it sounds then it almost sounds like people are overcomplicating a lot of these things. Like because if it's like if you have your then it's like okay, spend more time on trying to nail the ICP and the buying persona rather than tweaking your sequences, because then you will find an opportunity, you know, like if it doesn't happen the first time you go through the sequence, then maybe 3 months later will be a better timing. So it doesn't matter maybe that much on what you're saying as long as it's the right person you're trying to say it to.
Yes, and also as I would say, like again, it calling it, I do believe it's simpler actually, because but then you are relying much more on what you say when you get in touch. So then you have to be really good at the dialogue part. What happens if someone picks up at the other end?
Yeah.
But if you
stuttering is very good. No.
Yeah, well,
sometimes it could be actually.
Sometimes it could, right? But the part where you are then using written communication, then of course you have to be very mindful about the quality part of actually then what comes in front of getting in touch, because that is going to be looked upon, scrutinized a lot more than because calling is not a problem because you're not in touch. So who cares how many times you called or what you did, if you did it from the bathroom or the kitchen? Nobody cares. Nobody knows.
Nobody knows.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's when the research part come in. You have to increase the relevance. And if you're not relevant to the other person on the other end, and there's nothing there but an empty shell and a template, you're not going to be as successful as you were 2 or 3 years ago when templates and sequences still work very well.
So the companies that you work with, what sizes? You said you're a lot of sizes, but where do you feel like because if you're a $100 million revenue company, then you have a bigger team and you have done a lot of those things. Like, what do you feel like maybe the founders? Because I guess the founder-led sales to scalability is a inflection point that is hard. Like, or is it that must be one of the hardest of the product market fit stages?
Yeah.
Do you agree?
To some extent, yes. And yes, for sure. Like being the one that's like, if you have a company, like we work with startups. We work with like the ones that are going on the VC track with series seed, Series A, Series B, and so forth. That around that area, but we also work with organic grown companies that are doing really well, and they all have the same challenges. We work with corporate ventures, like companies spun out. They do have the same challenges. It's still about the same thing. You have something that you need to sell. You need to get in hold of people that would like to buy it, and you need to get them into a dialogue so you can actually talk about it, and you need to bring them to a buying process so you can actually make a business deal together with them, right? It's the same.
So people are just pretty shit at being able to communicate their business value to the person that is buying it.
Sorry, once more.
Are the salespeople then in general pretty bad at just communicating the problem that they're solving? Because if it's the same, no matter if it's organic, bootstrap, VC, then it must be that everybody's doing the same problem.
Yeah, but I would say like the similarities is like it's more similarities than its differences, and the similarities is definitely when it comes to the communication part. Like, how do you really communicate something towards a CEO, towards a mid manager, towards an operator level person? Like, how do you really communicate towards those, and then make sure that you match the value propositions to that?
And what is the most common mistake that then people are doing when they're trying? What is the most common mistake that they're doing when they're trying to communicate with a CEO?
That they don't understand what the CEO cares about, right?
Okay.
So you communicate something that is totally like not related to what they're doing. Like what like if you flip it around and say like if you're a CEO or someone at the C level in a company, you are pretty busy, right? And you're pretty busy in thinking about the development of the company more than anything else. And yes, it might be that your responsibility as the CFO is a financial responsibility, but that's just like a part of it, like your mindset and the way you're thinking. It's much more than that. If I would like to get in touch with any of them, I have to then be able to distill the value out of my platform and bring the value to the same level that they are thinking every day. Developing the company, we're going to have growth, margins, OPEX, CAPEX, like this language. And that is very much different than calling someone and talking about the features in your product. Like, my product can do A, B, and C. Who the fucking cares? Like, we don't care about your product. We care about our business, our challenges. Can you make it relatable?
I've been extremely fortunate I've only been in 2 companies before I started my own. And both of those organizations were very good sales organizations.
Yes.
So when you say these things, I feel a little bit, of course.
Of
Like,
course.
but your business wouldn't exist if it was, of course.
No.
And
It wouldn't been started if it wasn't, of course. Because for me also, it's of course, because I was also fortunate to go through a good, I would say, like a sales school where this was making, like it was made evident that it's like this. But not that many have been through this. Like, they start up a company from scratch, and then there's the first time on the journey. They don't know this. Some people have not been fortunate to be in this, like, these kind of sales environment, but maybe they've worked in a more traditional sales job in a traditional company. You don't have to be mindful about it because the business is a huge organization, huge business. It's more in the operation mode. The customer understand what you're selling. It's like a red ocean thingy. You're just replacing another product and stuff. You don't have to think about these things. And so the communicate. So for you, it's like second nature, probably. For me, it's second nature, and I do believe it's for many people it's second nature, and maybe more so the founders of something, because the founders have probably founded something because of something they have seen, and that's where probably the transition goes wrong. Is that when you are a founder that are onto something and you see that you gain traction, you are typically very good at communicating the different facets of the value of your product and match it towards whom you're talking to. Like, this is typically the situation. but you don't believe that that is anything that is important. So when you are going to then start onboarding other people, you forget to actually take those dimensions and give them to the other people. So they are sitting and selling features while you are selling value. And that is something we see a lot. And that is also something that I've seen in previous companies that I've been connected to before I did this scale up, right?
So if you're then breaking it down, then it's like, okay, we are selling this value. This is the problem that we're solving, and then like that could have they come with different problems as well, right? And it becomes a tree, and then in those problems, different buying personas are being attached to those problems.
Exactly.
And then based on that, you then will have tailored your pitch and your communication style and your relevance based on who's receiving that information.
Exactly.
And it's our job then to make sure that the person that is being onboarded into the sales organization understands the nuances and the differences.
Yes.
And that's where you guys are also then accelerating that, because you are working with the founder, with the teams, and then having this hybrid motion into
yeah, and we have done this so many times, and because it's our second nature, I would say, and because we've done it so many times, we have a particular approach to how to get this done. So basically, we sit in a room with, it could be the leader of the product, and it can be the leader of the sales team. It depends on how big a sales team is too. So we are not competing with the existing sales team, I would say. Like, we are part of that team and trying to raise things to the next level. Of course, if you have one. If you don't have one, we can be the first one if you would like to. But we're just basically sitting in a room, and then we are asking all our questions. We know what we're looking for. And basically what we're developing, it exactly what you're saying, is a communication map. And the communication map is not something that you are bound to, but it's something you lean upon. And you know that if I'm talking to that kind of person, okay, then I have to have these kind of nuances. Am I going to talk to that kind of person? I have to change it a bit. So I usually refer to it as like building sales narratives. And when you are working in towards like any kind of larger SME, and then enterprises, where you have several people involved, and it's typically like a hierarchy of buyers and different buyer personas within the organization. You at least run with 5, 6, 7 different sales narratives at any given time.
Yeah.
But most, they have one.
Yeah. That's true. And I think Gartner said something like that. Now in an enterprise sales process, there's a minimum of 12 stakeholders, and sometimes up to 20. So like one of my red flags was always when I saw that, there's only one person that is the contact here. Like, then it's clear that we are, definitely don't have the full picture of this process.
Exactly. And then the second part comes in, what you're pointing towards, like, because of communication is so important. That is our, like, as salespeople, it's our work. We are communicators and opening up dialogues to make relationships or build relationships. But if you then are in a certain field where you are selling towards companies with multi-personal decision makers or multi-personal touches, then you need to keep that organized, and that's where the processes come in, right? And the process part is also very important, to match the process to actually whom you're selling to and what you're selling. And that's also where I believe that a lot of people go wrong, because you just buy a CRM system and you just take the process that they set up as a baseline process for you. But that's not going to work. And then then of course you blame the CRM system because it's so complex and it doesn't work. It's like, no, you didn't think about, like, how are you actually going to run this communication stream towards these people, and then you take and build that into your CRM system, and then the CRM system is going to be amazing.
So what's the most common mistake you see in the CRMs then with your customers?
One believes that shorter processes are bringing shorter sales cycles. That is never happening, right? You're speeding up the process because you would like to push the deal through. But if you get, again, to a level where you're selling something that is worth hundreds of thousand NOK or 20, 30,000 euros or US dollars a year, nobody's want to get pushed through that process. It's a nurturing process.
Yeah.
And then you have to have the stages that actually is then relevant for what you're trying to develop in that business. Is it a relationship business, then, or a highly like relationship business? Then you have to have a relationship-based pipeline. Is it more like professional SaaS buyers, which it could be? Then you have to have a little bit of a more SaaS buyer pipeline. They're different.
Yeah. Yeah, I experienced this very much because I've always been a SaaS seller, and then I did some consulting,
Yes.
and then it's like, Jesus Christ, this is different because I was used to
Exactly.
sell the meeting,
Yes.
get the next stage, close it.
Exactly.
And whereas like consulting is like I'm running next to this company and just saying, "What's up?
Yes.
I'm here for you if you need me,"
Exactly.
until they need me. Like,
Exactly.
and it's just like it was very interesting to just be having this different type of.
But those two are very, very like this is like a very distinct difference, and I would say that the relationship or consultative way of selling, it's more similar to an enterprise, like complex enterprise sales process, right?
Yeah, if you have a higher ACV, longer deal cycle, it's
Yes.
very similar to consulting versus like lower ACV, high velocity.
Exactly.
Like
Then you push it through.
yeah, exactly. It's like I say that it's a cake budget money. Like
Cake budget money.
if it's if it's less than 5,000 euros or 10,000 euros, like a lot of companies pay more in birthday cakes a year on that than they would. So then it's like nobody just put it on Amex, like, and that can be pushed through because it's a Friday.
It can be, and then it's also again huge differences country by country, and this is also something that is very interesting, right? In terms of like in Norway, for instance, where like the maturity when it comes to buying like software and digital services, it's actually still pretty low. Like it's like the early days, so we have to treat low tier like cake money cases as if they were enterprise cases. And that is also, there are also other countries that have those similarities. So we also have to adapt to the culture and the maturity of the country. And that is also forgotten. So you just use the same formula for everything, and that's never going to fly.
No, I love the differences of the Nordic countries. As a Swede living in Norway for many years and now staying in Denmark, like
Oh, that's so much.
it's like the Swedes needs the secretary to chime in and have consensus, and Norwegians just it's only money, and then the Danes, they will screw you over if they want to, so it doesn't really matter. They're like, bring me to court. I like and everybody thinks that's the same. Oh, it's the Nordics, don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah,
try to parachute. Like I've been trying to do business or I have been doing business also in Denmark several times, and they are very, very professional buyers. Just like you have to be honest with that. Like they know their game, and of course, if you go there, you should probably triple your price before you go into any kind of negotiation, right? And then you have similarities. I would say like Danes and Dutch, very, very similar.
yes,
and that is of course something you can play upon. German's totally different, but also Germany is not Germany. Germany is like 10 different countries inside one country, and knowing just that. Most don't.
no, it's I heard this story that I'm not sure, it's probably not true, but when they built the Öresunds bridge, like that they had one lunchroom, and they were serving beers because like the Danish workers wanted to have beer for their lunch, but the Swedish workers couldn't handle that, so they were actually like falling off the bridge. So then they had to stop serving beers, and the Danish workers were in uproar, like, just because this fucking Swedes can't handle their beer, are you punishing us? So they had to change, and they had two different lunchrooms, one for the Swedes, one for the Danes. I'm not sure if it's true, but it's
you only have a folköl in Sweden, right? So
Exactly.
you're not used to that strong shit in the daytime.
Exactly. That's what a full percentage higher.
Full percentage higher. Well, that's a great story, by the way. Yeah.
But time and time again, you've seen like a lot of businesses fall through because they think that their cultural differences is lower than they are.
Yeah.
What about funding? Like you guys, you took some funding, right? Or I saw in Swisher, was that the article that you
Shifter, yeah.
Shifter, yeah. So what's your perspective, religion on funding versus not funding? When to take it, when not to take it? What do you think?
that is very different also based on the businesses, right? So we have been like, we were very fortunate to be like pretty well funded from the start, because we have like a co-founding team where some are the more like the funding partners and others are the working partners, if you can put it like that. Um, and then we decided to take upon some funding because we were going to develop a technology product in relation to our own business. So we needed some extra cash. But if not, I probably wouldn't have funded our business, because our business have a nature that doesn't really need funding, or shouldn't need that much funding until you get to a certain point and want to expand maybe and do something stuff. But there's a lot of companies that are on the VC journey, and they set out on this journey from day one. And of course, they're going to take funding. It's a natural part of their journey. And there we see a lot of variations, who is prioritizing what and in which order and so forth. And maybe the most interesting part is, of course, again coming from Norway in particular, is that most companies are, maybe most is probably putting it a little bit out there, but still a lot of companies are maybe not prioritizing commerciality early enough to deliver to expectations of where you should be to actually earn the funding that you're looking for. So if you would like to go the VC route, great. You just have to know what that means. And then also have to know what to deliver. And they're great framework for this. One of them that the listeners can go and Google is the framework of Point Nine Capital in Germany. I believe it is Christoph Jans that developed it back in the days. So he has like a SaaS funding, marketplace funding napkin, which has been changing every year. And I don't know how updated it is at the moment, but basically it's like, these are stages. This is what we're looking for. This is what you have to perform on. And if you're not even close to that, maybe you should go home and rethink your business before you come and knock on our door.
That makes sense. I think that a lot of people are there's been such an amount of free flowing capital the last couple of years. There's been like, that's become the norm to just go there. Whereas if you go back 15, 20 years, then it's like, there was more like, okay, we are going to earn $2 before we spend $1, which kind of makes sense in a business. But then it's like, oh, we're now going to, accelerate faster to get to profitability later, which now, like if you don't have a path to profitability now, you're pretty screwed, right? It's
right now it's expected to have some perspectives on it, at least. Funding has been very tricky the past 2 years, and it seems like it's on the move again, and some things are happening, and it's been gradually maybe picking up. It's not, and I do believe that it's important to also, like, from a Norwegian perspective, it's not like funding stopped. It's just that you shaved off the peak of free money, basically. Like, there's no free money anymore. It's you have to work a bit harder for it and build a business case that are maybe a little bit more solid.
What do you think? You've been in that game for a while. Like, what do you think is the most common mistake that founders are doing when they are, building that business case?
That they talk a lot about product development and how they go to conquer the world with very little rationale behind what are they going to do to conquer the world, and how much is that going to cost up towards what you are then perceiving to make out of it in terms of revenue. So the more in-depth like relationship between we are going to use a sales-led motion, for instance. That means that we're going to need to hire these 3 people in this order. That's going to cost us X, Y, and Z. And if we do that, we expect that we are being able to develop a certain amount of revenue within the next 12 months. It's too high level. And I understand why it is too high level, and for a lot of investors it is enough, because in this like early stage you're investing maybe more in the people and the idea and the product than you do in the plan, right? At least the early stage VC game. But I do believe that you might get more chances with more investors if you also have a strong rationale on how you plan to actually get from A to B, not only write down marketing.
But I think it's also that a lot of founders are product first, and they
Up here, yeah.
and then you have like the Naval quote, like if you have a great product, you don't need marketing. If you have great marketing, you don't need sales. And then someone commented, "This sounds stupid," and he goes, "I bet you're in sales." And but I think it's like, okay, if you have a great product, what is then a great product? Because even the best brands in the world still has, a go-to-market motion. And if you have this amazing tool that, is unheard of, how quicker could you grow if you also had like a good marketing and sales team behind it, right? It seems a little bit like...
But I think it's a very bad way of carrying a dialogue. Like, it's so polarizing. Like marketing and sales is pretty much the same thing, right? You're going to use different channels to reach people to communicate the value of something you have. Sometimes you can use then marketing mechanisms. Other times you need to use one-to-one person mechanisms. It's just like it's the same, and I don't buy that rationale at all, and at least not in today's world. I do believe that, and also I would say, like, if you do it that way, then you need a lot of capital, because then you need to pour a lot of money into the product and the marketing to get it to be as good as you're saying it is, and then probably gonna take you some time also to make up for the investment, right?
Yeah.
But it's kind of like, again, like it's very interesting to see, like, you don't. It depends very much on who the buyer is, because some buyers, you will never reach them through marketing. So it doesn't really matter how good product is. And especially if you get into like more immature businesses, immature industries. We are working a lot towards like the energy industry, like power grid operators, like assets management of windmill farms, like heavy, like old, like a little bit more old-fashioned industries. How am I going to reach them in marketing? Like they don't even use mail, some of them, right?
The old social media pitch was that, well, even though if they're in a B2B place, they will also be on Instagram and on Facebook.
Forget about it.
Yeah, they don't stop their Instagram scrolling to say, "Hey, asset management tool for wind farm." They don't do that. No.
And yeah, this is but it's always been like this. Like again, if you have been connected to sales and marketing over, like, say, more than 10 years, you have to realize that this like hypes is popping up all the time. And then there's one smart person popping up and saying something that seems smart. And of course, if you're a product person and a technology person, you would love that that is the truth, because then you can like lean upon that and say that, yeah, but he said that this is the truth. So, but you come back to the same thing again and again. I don't think much have changed at all in the core of things. Yes, you have to have a good product.
Yeah.
No question about it. But you also have to be able to reach the people and connect to them based on their situation, not your situation. And some is by phone, some is by mail, some is by trade shows, some is by billboards at the side of the street. But that is extremely dependent on your potential customer.
Do you think that because like I see that more and more companies are doing full cycle AEs versus the SDR, BDR, AE motion?
Yeah.
What's your take? What have you seen?
Very dependent on which business you are in. I don't buy it, because I do believe that the work that it's like, if you again then go like, especially into enterprise sales, like if you then go into thinking about like or let's put it another way, if you do it the American way, yes, 100% right. Because the American way of doing SDRing is not going to work, because that is like calling you, getting you into a meeting, trying to pitch you, and then you do the discoveries as soon as possible. That is not flying anymore. You have to get that dialogue going. You have to anchor the value higher up. You have to show relevance. And most of this, like BDR, BDR roles previously, they haven't been too mindful about that, because you have a job. You like a chew through your list, get the neat or bunt or whatever you use for your discoveries, and it's either thumbs up or thumbs down.
Yeah.
But that is not working anymore. That's true. But the answer to that is not not necessarily to do a full cycle alone. It might make sense in some industries, and maybe in particular where it's a very, very few accounts. But when you still are in a situation where there is a lot of accounts, now also then with the increasing difficulty in actually getting in touch with these accounts and actually establishing relevance, it doesn't make sense from a logical perspective that someone is going to run like high-level relational sales processes and at the same time trying to source, enrich, personalize, reach out, and then try to balance that again. That's like back into 2010 when you had to do it manually. It's like it's impossible with the context switch and with the workload over time.
So I guess, so it's instead of trying to label this and say like this is how your BDR, SDR, AE, full cycle AE, it's like accepting that it's changing and the roles should change with that.
Yes. That's good.
And I think, but one of the things that like from not having a quota carrying person, like that, then, okay, we change this BDR title to enrichment relevance.
Our people, we have actually changed the roles of our people. They are outbound growth specialists.
Outbound growth specialists.
Yeah, they will work multi-channel and whatever makes sense for that case.
I smell that there is a younger generation of TikTokers that is applying for that job much higher than when it was called a business development representative.
Well, we haven't tried it yet, but it definitely it resonates better with the challenges that we have out there, and of course they're B2B. But more importantly, it's not the title, but what it entails. It's like, again, whatever it takes to get in touch and open up the first part of the dialogue. And it is an important part because it's the initial part of any kind of relationship building. Getting access and building trust, it starts there. So it's about, again, what you do and how you develop that with the times we are in right now.
Yeah,
it's 100% agree with you on that.
But I think then again it comes down to like the contract values, right? Because if you're then again if you end up in that bracket where you're longer deal cycle, higher ACV, then you can afford it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're on high velocity sales, like in Denmark, it's a little bit more expensive, I think, than Norway with social contributions and such.
Mm-hmm.
I think the break-even point was at $12,500.
Yes.
Like if you had, if you had lower than that, you just couldn't justify having a XDR that was doing this because they were not quota carrying.
Well, maybe not, but then again, I do believe then that it will be depending on a few things too, and you are pointing towards it, right? And that is, again, one part of it is the value of the deal, for sure. But of course, then it's the second part of it is then how many are you able to develop of a high quality with that value, and how many are you able to win? The win ratios here, they matter a lot. And of course, then the sales cycles. So, and looking upon the sales velocities of this, which is what I'm pointing towards, and the math can work if you just let the people work the right way about then developing enough deals of enough value with high enough win ratios over short enough sales cycles.
Yes.
And sometimes that, so I don't, but if I want, like, if I maybe the best way to say it, I think one of the main challenges we have when it comes to both software and these discussions that we read in social media is like it's a lot of generalization, and the generalization is actually bringing a lot of confusion. It's more about being rational and logic, and if the math makes sense, do it. Don't listen to all the other bullshit, because it's as simple as the math behind it first. And so I would say like SDRs definitely not dead. They are becoming smarter, and they can work much more opportunities in parallel in a sales velocity game, high velocity game. Maybe double, triple the activity per SDR, because they get so much relief out of all the manual work that they used to have to do. And then you should expect the output to be like 3 times more. Well, then maybe the math makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. It's because it's like you kind of for me it's a battle between old and new. You know, like it's like you're brought up in a certain way, and then you see that things are changing quite quickly.
Yeah.
And then, you know, like what does that person want to do? Like, how can it also be a, you know, a good career development, and like how can you hire, you know, because you kind of want that person to eventually go into a quota carrying role, I guess. Perhaps.
But that's really a good thing too, because maybe not anymore.
Mm.
It used to be like the natural progression part for someone coming into sales. But I would actually argue the opposite today, that the best sales developers, business developers, or open growth specialists that you have, there are people that actually see this as a career path, because it's becoming so complex. You have to learn so much technology. You have to understand so much more than before. It's what's not only just a path to closing.
Mm.
And the best ones, in my opinion, they should be making just as much as the salespeople almost, because they are part of a team more than just carrying a certain part of the work.
Yeah. How do you set up a compensation for that though? Like, cause that's,
Tie it to the sales.
yeah.
That's a way to do it, maybe.
Mm.
Like, I think we could, like, I do believe that compensation design is a very complex like field, right? It depends so much on the business again, but maybe that, like, maybe bigger parts of the compensation can be tied, for instance, to actually then deals being closed.
Mm.
But maybe also we can look upon other things, like, again, if we have established then sales velocity as a way of measuring quality of business or sales opportunities in our business, well, maybe there are three metrics is there that or KPIs there that you're measured against every month, and say, like, as long as you are above this, then you kick in some additional bonus. If you don't, then you know.
Yeah. And it's so interesting because it's so many things that you can do that would be really fun to do, and then like operationally you need basically need like another CRM, sales ops, rev ops wizard to orchestrate and keep track on this, right? It's because you don't want to screw with people's compensation. That's the one way to get a really demotivated team very quickly.
Yeah, I do agree. So the closer, I totally agree with that. Like you do have to be compensating for something that is very close to you. So that's also why I don't actually believe it's a very good idea to tie at least the base compensation, like the OTE or OTC then, towards like if you are a BDR, SDR, towards if a deal closes or not, because that is basically not within your like control 100%.
Yeah.
It could be some kickback there, but it's not like a baseline. But it could be tied to the quality of the sales opportunity, for instance, right? And if we then have data that says that if a sales opportunity is of a certain quality, 40% of them should actually close, then it's quite easy to manage, actually.
Yeah, there's there's a lot of good examples of that. I remember Suit Supply was running a lot of quality assurance, kind of like on customer success.
Yeah.
So they had to change the compensation model for their staff, because there was at times people selling a lot and hit their quotas on like monthly basis,
Mm-hmm.
but they didn't have any repeat customers.
Yes.
So they changed. So if they didn't get an NPS score above 90% each month,
Yes.
they got deducted like 20% of their of their of their earnings.
That's a
So
way
that's
to do it.
yeah. So then they change. Then all of a sudden they increased the NPS. They might be not having the high peaks, but they had repeatable business.
Exactly.
So it's like there's a lot of cool, fun ways of doing it. And I think like having team, like marketing, customer success, sales, team bonuses is it also brings a lot more joy to do that, because then we're erasing silos instantly, because we're now we're looking at this as a business, not only as a silo.
Especially then, like, I do, like, again, like, compensation is something that one should think about thoroughly when you launch it into an organization, because it can screw up the whole organization. But I do believe there's some things that for instance, like, especially what you pointed towards now, like, everyone is better off if we have customers that stay longer. So a team compensation could be tied to NPS or some kind of customer score, for sure. But as long as it's not the major part of it, because you're not that much a control of it alone, so it have to be proportionate to your responsibility.
I think you have to look at it as a true bonus. Like, it's something that you're gonna be super happy with your salary.
Yeah.
With your on target earnings, the things that you can control yourself.
Yes.
And then anything that is like, on top of that is like, oh yeah, we as a business did really nicely. But if you feel like, oh, I'm less gifts for the kids for Christmas this year because the bonus didn't come in, then you're then you're
in the wrong direction, right?
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
What is there anything that you're like excited about now, that you're like, when you go to work, that this is something that gives you extra bounce in your sneaker?
There's a lot of things. Like, I'm so fortunate to be in a situation where I can work with several founders in parallel at any given time. So
15 to 20.
yeah, and sometimes more, and sometimes a little bit less. But that really, like, I do believe that I can talk on behalf of my team too. Like, our team, they stay on for a long time. We don't have a very little people coming just and passing by, and it is because you get exposed to so many passionate founders and leaders that really would like to solve something within their company, and then seeing that for a lot of them, of course, never all of them. We also have cases where we screw up or can't solve it. But for most of them, or I would say at least, you see that you actually can support in a positive way and solve, especially then what is closest maybe to heart for all businesses. It's that you have to make more money that you spend, basically. If not, you're gonna go bankrupt.
Yeah.
But seeing, like, yeah, so getting to be in those situations and solving those problems and actually, like, contributing to moving the needle, that is an extremely rewarding way. Like, it makes you wake up with a smile every morning. Yeah.
When is it that it doesn't work? You said like sometimes, like, so what is a bad client for you?
Yeah, I would say, like, when I would rather flip it around and say that sometimes we're probably a bad supplier. And that happens sometimes. Thank God, not that often. Like, but we have a few cases where we've not been able to deliver to the level that we would like to deliver on. So it might be that we had some unfortunate events happen, so we were not able to deliver the quality we wanted. That happened a few times, and sometimes it's also been expectation management, I would say, and that might not be only on us. We try to expectation manage, but you would like to maybe to go to a certain country or achieve something, and we try to explain that, we don't believe that's going to be possible. We're going to give it a try, but don't hold it against us. But even though you're pretty clear about it, you still get hold against you. Like, you've never been to Sweden before, so we don't really know if people like joika, Norwegian joikakaker. We have to try first. Don't expect us to sell 10,000 boxes of this tomorrow because we don't know.
Mm.
But then if you sit there 1 month down the road and say like, yeah, but nobody's buying. It's like, but kind of told you so.
Yeah, now we know.
Now we know.
Yeah.
So, but that is also, the good thing with sales actually, like whether or not it's working or not, like if you're doing it the proper way, you're going to figure out very quickly if someone is going to buy or not.
Yeah.
So you might then spend a lot of or less time wasting money to try to figure it out. So then go back and rebuild your product, and then we can fit it better. Right?
I think, like, what I'm taking a little bit away from what we've talked about today is that there's so much things that you can do.
Yes.
Like, and everything is changing. Landscapes are changing. The technology is changing.
And faster and faster.
Faster and faster.
Right.
But the basics are the same.
Yes.
You need to come with a good value proposition to the right person and be relevant when you're doing that. And if you're trying to instead of trying to do everything, just do the groundwork every day. And if you can manage to do that, like, then you're all set. And if you're not able to manage that, well, then you guys can help with that as well. Right? It's
we can help and others can help, and it all depends on, again, it's not that many out there that are doing like things exactly like us, like going into the company, building things inside, and we are also supporting the companies like in recruitment and building the teams and stuff like that. But there are others that are providing other services that do great jobs. Like you have lead gen agencies, you have phone like meeting booking agencies, and for some companies this is the best way to do it, and for other companies the best way is to come to us. But just to summarize what you said, like it is, in my opinion, still very. It's quite simple, but the most difficult part is actually figuring out what you need to figure out. So you spend a lot of time on that exercise. You try to navigate an extreme complex landscape. So what I sometimes say is that we're going to save you that time, because we are not going to spend time figuring out what we're trying to figure out. Because we have done this so many times, we know what we're looking for.
Mm.
You need to, and we have been touching upon it today too, like you need to have a plan for how to approach the market that is then based on your business and the market that you're going into. Like if your ACV is not high enough, you can't use sales. If your ACV is really high and that counts is huge with a lot of stakeholders, you have to have a different approach and so forth. So you need to have a good plan that is based on. And that doesn't mean that you need to spend like years planning. It's just like have a plan. You need to understand how to position it. Like how do we communicate towards whom? You need to have some level of processes. I truly believe that you should have at least a minimum baseline process that is again supporting that plan, and that should not be the out of the box CRM process, because that never works for anyone. You do need to have the right people in place to execute on the processes, to reach out to the people, to actually make the plan moving, and then you need to be able to measure that, and that is performance metrics. Like you have to be on top of the data today. And if any of these components is lacking in your company, you don't have any plans, you don't know the positioning, you don't have any processes, you don't have the people, and you don't have any understanding of performance, then you should call me for sure.
Yeah.
But more important than so, you should just look at the box that is most important right now, not try to fix all of them. And there's probably one of them that are a bit weaker than the other. And that is typically, in my experience, the communication part. Where you can get a long way with an Excel sheet, actually, before you have a CRM system. You can get a long way with just measuring the simplest thing. And you as a founder, you can get a long way by being the only person doing all the work. But if you're not able to communicate the value of your product to the stakeholders, you don't get anyway.
No, I'm 100%. Thank you very much, Lars.
Thank you.
This time flew.
It was fun.
Yes, a lot of fun.
Mm.
That's the pod.
That's the pod.